I always thought the worst thing a teacher could do was assign group projects. I was wrong. It started in Mr. Harvin's chemistry class, room 214 at Willow Grove High. I was 17 when the seizures began, small ones at first, where my hands would twitch and my sentences would trail off midward. Then came the collapse. We were reviewing stoichiometry when my eyes rolled back and I crumpled to the floor. My lab partner, Jordan, called my name, panicked. Students gathered, stunned. Mr. Harvin? He stood over me like I was faking it for laughs. Enough with the theatrics, he snapped. You're disrupting my class. He wrote me up for classroom misconduct, while I was still dizzy on the tile. The second episode was worse. We were watching a demo when I felt the static rise in my spine. I barely had time to mutter, Jordan, before I seized up and fell again, sweeping a tray of notebooks and pens to the ground. Mr. Harvin kicked a chair and sent me to the principal's office. Another write-up. Another accusation of attention-seeking. My dad was livid, not at me, but at the school. He'd seen the moments I froze mid-sentence at home. We booked a neurology appointment, but Harvin had already decided I was a problem. He moved me to the back row, muttering something about keeping the drama out of the splash zone. Then came the near disaster. We were working with sodium hydroxide, corrosive acid, when I felt the burn in my head. A smell like hot metal hit my nose. I tried to set the beaker down, but my body seized again. I hit the floor hard, knocking the table. Jordan caught one of the bottles midair, screaming my name. And Harvin? He yelled, this is a science lab, not a circus. Then he suspended me, while I was still convulsing on the floor. A week later, the neurologist ran tests, EEG, scans, the works. The diagnosis, temporal lobe epilepsy. My brain was glitching under stress and fluorescent lights. I got a prescription and an official accommodations letter. When I brought it in, Mr. Harvin took the paper like it was a prank. How convenient, he sneered, making air quotes around medical condition. Then he made me redo the acid lab, alone. That's when I started noticing things. Harvin would disappear to his desk for long sips from a metal thermos. His face, always flushed. His words, slurred. The room smelled off. Sharp. Like alcohol, not coffee. Then one day he collapsed. In the middle of a test, we heard a crash. Harvin had fallen behind the demo table, smashing glass and knocking over chemicals. The air filled with fumes. Jordan yanked the fire alarm. I called 911. When paramedics arrived, they found a silver flask beneath his desk. Vodka. He'd been drinking for months, teaching drunk, grading drunk, screaming drunk. His license? Gone. But no charges. And somehow, he still blamed me. 3 weeks later, I spotted him. Across the street from my house. Just sitting there. Watching. 3 weeks after Mr. Harvin lost his license, I spotted him again. He was across the street, sitting on a bus bench, still wearing one of those wrinkled dress shirts from his teaching days. Just watching our front door. When he noticed me staring, he stood up fast and walked off, but not before I caught the look on his face. Pure hatred. I told my parents that night over dinner. My mom tried to brush it off. Maybe he was just passing through, she offered. My dad didn't buy it. But what could we do? The man had already lost his job and his reputation. Surely he'd move on. He didn't. The next week, I started getting weird calls. Blocked numbers. Every time I answered, it was just breathing. Slow, deliberate, and silent. Then, click. Next came the letters. Plain white envelopes with no return address. Inside were screenshots of my Instagram and group photos with friends. Someone had scribbled over them in red pen. I ruined my life, one said, written over a pic of me and Jordan at a school event. Meanwhile, my meds were working. I hadn't had a seizure in over a month. My neurologist was thrilled. I should have been getting back to normal. But I couldn't stop looking over my shoulder. Then the trash started. One morning we woke up to find our garbage cans tipped over and trash flung across the lawn. A few days later, someone drew weird symbols on the driveway in chalk, jagged, angry-looking stuff. My dad installed security cameras, but whoever it was stayed just out of frame. We all knew it was Harvin, but with no proof, the cops couldn't help. Then I started seeing him everywhere. At the grocery store, one aisle over, pretending to read soup labels while glaring at me. At the park while I jogged, sitting on a bench behind sunglasses. At the doctor's office parking lot, leaning on a car and staring like he belonged there. We called the police again. The officer took notes and promised extra patrols near our street, but explained the same thing. Without an actual threat or act of violence, there wasn't much they could do. Watching someone in public isn't technically illegal, and the letters, disturbing as they were, didn't cross the legal line. Still, the stress started catching up. I began having focal seizures again, brief blackouts where I'd just space out, completely unaware. My neurologist upped my dose and wrote another letter for the school. She warned that stress was a major trigger. Jordan noticed something was off. Even though we weren't in the same class anymore, we still hung out, and one afternoon he looked at me and said, "You're not okay." I told him everything. His face went pale. He'd seen Harvin too, lurking around the school parking lot after hours, watching kids leave from behind the faculty lot. My dad snapped. He tracked down where Harvin was living, a rundown apartment across town, and went to confront him. He came back shaken. Harvin had opened the door reeking of booze and immediately launched into a rant. Said I'd ruined his life. Claimed I faked everything just to frame him. When my dad tried to reason with him, Harvin slammed the door. The next day, things got worse. Someone slashed the tires on my bike. Security footage? Corrupted. That night, while we were at dinner, our neighbor called to say they saw someone in our backyard. We rushed home. Nothing was missing, but the fence gate was wide open. My mom contacted a lawyer about a restraining order. The answer? Not promising. Without direct threats or a clear pattern of harm, it would be hard to get one. And even if we did, restraining orders are just paper. And paper doesn't stop obsession. I started changing my routes. Leaving school through the back. Avoiding the park. Staying in the library until one of my parents could pick me up. We upgraded the house, new locks, more cameras, a full alarm system. But the fear didn't leave. Every creak of the house, every slow-moving car outside, made my stomach clench. I couldn't sleep without checking the curtains twice. I jumped at every sound. The anxiety settled in my bones. Even with new locks, cameras, and my parents constantly nearby, the feeling of being watched never left. One afternoon, I was studying in my room when the doorbell rang. My mom answered it and found a delivery person holding a heavy package addressed to me. We hadn't ordered anything. Inside was a chemistry textbook. The same edition we used in Mr. Harvin's class, except the pages were torn, and every single safety protocol had been scribbled out in red marker. Notes were scrawled over every margin. You think you're smart? You're not. The handwriting was disturbingly familiar. My dad drove the package straight to the police. The officer agreed it was threatening, but again, without more, their hands were tied. Keep documenting, they said. Build a case. The next blow wasn't physical, it was social. The next morning, I walked into school and felt it instantly. The stares, the whispers. Jordan pulled me aside, phone in hand, jaw clenched. Look at this, he said. A fake social media account had popped up overnight, filled with doctored photos of me. Each caption accused me of faking seizures for sympathy, of manipulating teachers, and ruining a good man's life. Worse, the account had messaged dozens of students. Even some teachers started looking at me differently. Jordan was a rock. He reported the account, took screenshots, and defended me wherever he could. But the damage was spreading faster than we could patch it. My reputation was unraveling in real time. Then Harvin escalated. I was walking to the library after school, taking the usual path, when I felt it, someone behind me. I turned. He was 50 feet back, walking slowly, matching my pace. I ducked into a crowded store and watched through the glass as he stood on the sidewalk, scanning the crowd, waiting. My hands were shaking when I called my dad. He got there fast, but just as he pulled up, we saw Harvin's car pulling away. That night, our landline rang at 2 a.m. My dad answered. He didn't speak, just hung up with a clenched jaw. Heavy breathing, he said. The calls kept coming all night. We unplugged the phone, but nobody slept. The next seizure hit in English class. I blacked out mid-sentence, crashed to the floor, and hit my head on the edge of a desk. The nurse called an ambulance as a precaution. I remember flashing lights, a stretcher, the buzz of fluorescent bulbs. And then, I saw him, sitting in the ER waiting room, pretending to read a magazine. 3 rows away, watching me. My dad raised hell. Security escorted him out. But by the time we were discharged, Harvin was in the parking lot, just waiting. My neurologist adjusted my meds again. She stressed how much stress itself was worsening my condition. She offered to write another formal letter, linking the harassment directly to my medical deterioration. My parents started having hard conversations. Should we move? Should I switch schools? It all felt so unfair. I hadn't done anything wrong. Why was I the one being pushed out? I started keeping a journal. Every call, every sighting, every letter, every noise in the night. If the police wanted evidence, I'd give them evidence. Then came the break we needed. Our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chun, knocked one evening holding a USB drive. She'd upgraded her security system and caught something on her footage. At 3 a.m., Harvin was on our property, plain as day, trying to pick the back lock. His face was clear as glass in her high-def camera. This time, the police took it seriously. Attempted break-in. A real crime. Officers came to take our statements and gather all documentation. They promised to bring him in. But when they arrived at his apartment, he was gone. The landlord said he'd vanished 2 days earlier, left behind 3 months of unpaid rent, and given a fake forwarding address. The police issued a warrant. But not knowing where he was, that was worse than seeing him. Every stranger in a hoodie could be him. Every knock at the door made my heart lurch. I started having panic attacks so intense they mimicked seizure auras, making it hard to tell what was anxiety and what was neurological. My parents added motion sensor lights, upgraded the alarm again. Dad took leave from work. Mom started carrying pepper spray. We all enrolled in a community safety workshop, learning self-defense, situational awareness. It helped a little. 2 full weeks passed without incident. I started to hope. Maybe he'd finally given up. Then Jordan texted me. It was during lunch when Jordan texted me. Urgent. He'd overheard 2 students talking about a substitute teacher who'd been asking strange questions about me. The guy had claimed he was conducting research on students with medical conditions, but he only asked about one thing: my seizures, my class schedule, where I sat, who I spent time with. The school launched an investigation, and it didn't take long to unravel. The sub had used fake credentials. Security footage confirmed it. A man in a wig, glasses, and clothes that didn't quite fit. But under the cheap disguise, it was Mr. Harvin. He'd spent half a day on campus pretending to be a staff member, accessing records, sitting in on classes, watching from a distance. When the news broke, chaos followed. There was an emergency assembly about school safety. Parents were furious. New protocols were introduced. Background checks, ID badges, restricted access. My name wasn't officially mentioned, but the rumors didn't need a name. They say she made it up. She must have done something. What kind of person makes a teacher that obsessed? The stares came harder. The whispers never stopped. Even teachers tiptoed around me now, asking if I was okay every 5 minutes like I was a bomb about to go off. My world shrank to Jordan and a few loyal friends. The rest? They kept their distance. Fake accounts kept popping up online. Just when we'd report one, another would take its place, filled with more lies, more photos, more accusations. My grades started slipping. Sleep was impossible. Concentration? Forget it. Every hallway felt like a threat. During a history presentation, I froze, not because of a seizure, but because I saw someone through the classroom window who looked exactly like Harvin. It was just a maintenance guy. Didn't matter. The panic still hit. Things escalated again. But this time, he came from my parents. Dad's boss called him in after receiving an anonymous package filled with fake emails claiming he was violent and unstable. My mom's office got a similar envelope, suggesting she was neglecting a troubled daughter with imaginary disorders. The papers blended real pieces of my medical history with twisted fiction. Fortunately, both employers saw through it. They beefed up security and flagged any further contact. But the toll was showing. Dad stopped sleeping. Mom started getting migraines. Our dinners became strategy sessions. I felt like I was ripping our family apart. My therapist helped. She reminded me that none of this was my fault, that Mr. Harvin was responsible for his own actions. She gave me coping tools, and I clung to them. Barely. One night, we noticed our recycling bin looked off. The lid was crooked. Dad checked, and found a GPS tracker taped to the underside. 2 more were discovered on our cars. He was tracking us. Every doctor's appointment. Every trip to the store. Every time we thought we were being cautious, he already knew. Police added stalking charges, but Harvin was still out there. Then things turned even darker. We hired a professional security consultant. They found signs that our home Wi-Fi had been compromised. Our phones might have been cloned. Messages intercepted. We were being surveilled in ways we couldn't even see. We changed everything: passwords, accounts, devices, encrypted apps, weekly sweeps. Our home became a digital fortress to match the physical one. Jordan never left my side. He walked with me to class, organized study groups, so I was never alone. His girlfriend Bert joined in, using her social accounts to fight back, reporting the fakes, spreading truth. That friendship became my anchor. Then, finally, a break. Harvin slipped. He used a credit card at a gas station 2 towns away. Security footage caught him. He'd lost weight, grown a beard, changed clothes, but his walk gave him away. Police found the motel he'd been living in, under a fake name. He was gone before they got there, but what he left behind was pure horror. One wall was covered in maps of our neighborhood. Printouts of me, my parents, our house, scattered across the bed. Notebooks full of unhinged ramblings. Revenge plans. Surveillance logs. The lead officer told us it was one of the most disturbing things he'd ever seen. But one discovery chilled me more than anything else. Harvin had been studying my medical history, down to the smallest detail. He'd researched seizure triggers, light patterns, even chemical formulas that could provoke an episode. He wasn't just angry. He wanted to break me. Turns out, the chemistry teacher who mocked my seizures while secretly teaching drunk had been planning to weaponize my condition against me. Police found pages of notes in his motel room. Diagrams of the brain. Lists of epilepsy triggers. He'd researched light patterns, sound frequencies, even chemical fumes that could provoke seizures, especially for people like me with temporal lobe epilepsy. When he saw the cops closing in, Harvin lost it. That's when the real horror started. Dead animals began showing up on our porch. Our car tires were slashed, twice, even with security cameras rolling. Messages like, "Faker," and "You'll pay," were spray painted across our garage door. Somehow, he never left fingerprints. Never showed his face. And at school, someone started pulling the fire alarm during my classes, forcing us out into crowded chaos. My locker was vandalized with crude drawings and medical symbols. Notes appeared in my backpack, written in jagged red marker. "Admit what you did. Tell them you lied. You ruined me." Eventually, the school offered me home instruction. At first I resisted. Leaving felt like letting him win, but my parents weren't taking chances. A retired teacher named Victoria came by 3 times a week. She was kind, patient, and never made me feel broken. Still, the isolation was brutal. Jordan visited when he could, but I watched life continue without me, through blurry photos on Instagram, pep rallies, senior night, weekend parties. Meanwhile, I was locked in my own home like a prisoner. Until Harvin made a mistake. He sent a package directly to the police, a rambling confession that was really a demand. He wanted them to arrest me for ruining his life. The letter included specific details about what happened in class, details only he could have known. And this time, he left fingerprints, DNA, handwriting, everything. With ironclad evidence, the manhunt turned aggressive. His face was plastered on local news. Police hit every motel and shelter in a 50-mile radius. Even his ex-wife was contacted, and she had voicemails full of unhinged rants about me. She'd been saving them for her lawyer. Then, one night at 3 a.m., our motion sensors tripped. Harvin was in our backyard. Security footage showed him pouring something into the grass. My dad called 911 while Mom got me into the safe room we'd installed. Police arrived minutes later, but he was already gone. Hazmat teams identified the substance, a chemical cocktail that, when mixed, could create toxic fumes. If we'd gone outside, if the windows had been open, we could have died. Now it wasn't just harassment. It was attempted poisoning, and the police knew it. We evacuated to a hotel that night. The staff there gave us extra security. We tried to stay normal. Online classes, remote work, takeout dinners, but nothing felt normal anymore. I was jumpy, on edge. My medication stopped working as well. I had breakthrough seizures from the stress. My neurologist adjusted my dose again and started documenting everything for potential court proceedings. Then it happened. One night, I woke up needing water, and I caught a strange smell in the air. Not the metallic haze I got before a seizure. Smoke. I rushed to the window. Our car was on fire. Dad grabbed the fire extinguisher. Mom called 911. Hotel security reviewed the footage, and there he was. Harvin, dousing our car with accelerant. But this time, he didn't get away. A hotel guest, retired military, saw him and followed from a distance, long enough to catch his license plate. Police found the car ditched a few miles away. Search dogs picked up his scent and led officers to a cluster of abandoned warehouses. They found him inside. After hours of negotiation, Harvin tried to escape out a loading dock and was finally arrested. I saw him through one-way glass at the station. Gaunt, dirty, eyes wild. He ranted to detectives that I had planned all of this, that I had orchestrated his downfall, that I'd somehow caused his drinking, his firing, his entire collapse. He was completely unhinged. The charges stacked fast: stalking, harassment, attempted poisoning, arson, breaking and entering, terroristic threats, and more. The prosecutor told us he would not be getting out anytime soon. Even with Mr. Harvin in custody and facing serious prison time, we couldn't let our guard down. He was still obsessed. From inside jail, he tried to recruit other inmates to keep harassing me. He sent letters, made calls, even offered commissary money to anyone willing to place anonymous ads or collect information about me. We were rebuilding our lives, slowly. Our house got a full security overhaul. My parents hired professionals to scrub away all traces of his vandalism. Even still, it took a therapist, someone who specialized in trauma and stalking victims, to help us reclaim our space. Eventually, home started to feel safe again. Returning to Willow Grove High wasn't easy. The administration had implemented new security protocols just for me. Officers knew my name, face, and schedule. Teachers were briefed on what to do in case of emergencies. Some students welcomed me back warmly. Others just stared, or worse, avoided me. But eventually, as always, the drama shifted to someone else. With the stress easing, my seizures started stabilizing again. My neurologist was cautiously optimistic, but kept me on a higher dose, just in case. Support groups for stalking survivors gave me a community of people who really understood. And through all of it, Jordan never left my side. He didn't treat me like I was fragile or broken. He was just there, steady, unshakable. When I was finally ready to go back to social events, he walked in right beside me. Always a step behind, always watching, but never smothering. The trial date loomed. I had mixed feelings. A part of me dreaded reliving everything on the stand, but another part needed closure. The prosecutor worked closely with us, preparing, explaining, rehearsing testimony. The case was airtight: video evidence, tracking devices, forged credentials, even fingerprints on a manifesto Harvin mailed directly to the police. But 2 weeks before trial, Harvin's lawyer offered a plea deal: 15 years in prison, no parole eligibility, mandatory psychiatric treatment, a permanent restraining order. My parents and I discussed it in the prosecutor's office. It was a long, heavy conversation, but in the end, we agreed. Sparing me from testifying in open court was worth it. 3 days later, I got a letter from Harvin. It was mailed from jail and filled with rambling accusations and veiled threats, promising revenge when he finally got out. He claimed he was the real victim, that I was behind some massive conspiracy. The prosecutor immediately filed new charges: witness intimidation. That letter added years to his sentence. When I returned to school full-time, Jordan drove me that first day. The school let me start with half-days to ease back in. Students stared. Teachers looked at me like I might shatter. But Jordan and our friend Bert were waiting at our usual lunch table, chatting about the school science fair like nothing had ever happened. And for the first time in months, I noticed something. My hands weren't shaking. That night, my mom found something terrifying in the local classified ads: a post looking for a chemistry tutor for a personal project involving light frequencies and neurological response. The wording was identical to Harvin's research notes. It didn't take long to trace it. Harvin had been using the jail phone to contact old students. He was trying to get them to carry out his vendetta. More than one inmate came forward, admitting Harvin offered them commissary cash to help harass me on the outside. The prosecutor added conspiracy charges and pushed to revoke his phone privileges. At the next court hearing, Harvin snapped. He started screaming that I was controlling the judge, that the entire system was rigged against him. Court officers had to physically drag him out of the room. Even his own attorney looked horrified. Then something unexpected happened. Victoria, my home instruction teacher, called. She'd received a strange phone call from someone claiming to be writing a book about student-teacher conflicts. They asked a lot of detailed, invasive questions about my medical condition and daily schedule. Suspicious, she recorded the call and traced the number. It came from a payphone right outside the jail. Further investigation uncovered something chilling. Harvin wasn't acting alone anymore. Just when we thought Harvin couldn't go any further, we found out he'd convinced his cellmate, who was about to be released, to continue the harassment. Police intercepted the man before he could act. He'd been going to libraries, researching our family, and mapping out a plan to pick up where Harvin left off. He was arrested for conspiracy and stalking. The plea hearing finally came. It was a cold, gray Thursday. I sat between my parents, trying to steady my breathing as Harvin was led and wearing shackles. He looked worse, gaunt, hair messy, eyes darting around the courtroom until they locked on me. The hatred in them was unmistakable. The judge read off every charge one by one: stalking, harassment, attempted poisoning, arson, witness intimidation, conspiracy. The list went on. When asked how he pled, Harvin paused. For a terrifying second, I thought he might reject the plea deal. But after a hurried whisper from his lawyer, he grunted out a guilty. Before sentencing, the judge allowed victim impact statements. My dad spoke first. He described the fear that had taken over our lives, the financial toll of home security, the sleepless nights. My mom followed. Her voice cracked as she talked about watching me suffer through seizure after seizure, helpless to stop them. When it was my turn, I had a speech prepared about healing and forgiveness. But standing there, staring at him, something else came out. I told the truth. About the seizures. About the fear. About what it's like when your own body is turned into a weapon against you. I told the court how he'd used my condition to humiliate, isolate, and endanger me. The courtroom was silent. Harvin tried to interrupt, twice, but the judge shut him down. Still, when I finished, he erupted. He screamed that I'd orchestrated everything. Accused me of faking my seizures. Said the medical reports were forgeries. that I had destroyed his life on purpose. The judge had to threaten contempt of court just to get him to shut up. When the sentence came, it was everything we'd hoped for. 20 years, parole after 15, if ever, mandatory psychiatric treatment, a permanent restraining order, and restitution to cover our security costs. As they dragged him away, Harvin screamed one final threat. "That girl's gonna pay. I'll never stop." His voice echoed in the halls behind us. Outside the courthouse, it was over, at least officially. My dad hugged me tight. My mom cried, for the first time in weeks. The prosecutor promised that any attempt Harvin made to contact us would land him even more time. And still, it didn't feel quite over. 2 weeks later, we got a call from the prison psychiatrist assigned to Harvin's case. She'd been reviewing his behavior and reached out to us for context. What she told us chilled me. He'd been drawing detailed maps of our house, my school, stores I'd visited. He had my routine memorized. He could list every class, every errand, every appointment I'd had over the months he was stalking me. The psychiatrist diagnosed him with severe delusional disorder and obsessive fixation. She recommended maximum security and said her report would block any chance at early release. But she also warned us to stay vigilant. Even prison hadn't broken his obsession. Jordan and I talked about it over pizza that weekend. He'd been reading up on stalking cases and found that most perpetrators eventually moved on. But Harvin? His fixation was different. It had mutated into something deeper, something more dangerous. We decided our security measures would stay indefinitely. Then something happened that caught all of us by surprise. Several former students of Mr. Harvin reached out through the school counselor. They told their own stories. One girl said he'd failed her after she refused to stay after school for extra help. Another described inappropriate comments about her appearance. What emerged was a pattern. Harvin's behavior had been disturbing long before he started drinking. Their testimonies led to a school board hearing. New policies were put in place, stronger safeguards for students, better reporting systems, regular substance screening for teachers. We hadn't expected to make a systemic impact, but somehow we had. Meanwhile, I was improving. The medication was working. My seizures stabilized. My neurologist started lowering my dosage gradually. For the first time in a year, I felt like my body belonged to me again. Summer came. I got a part-time job at a local bookstore, trying to reclaim some independence. The owner knew my history and always made sure I worked shifts with other people. Occasionally, customers would recognize me from the news, but most just treated me normally. One afternoon, while shelving chemistry books, I spotted someone who looked very familiar. My chest tightened, hands trembling, until I realized it was just a college student shopping for textbooks. The paranoia didn't vanish overnight. Every stranger who looked a second too long, every bump in the night, every car that slowed down near our house, it still made my heart race. But as the days passed and nothing happened, each false alarm became a quiet reminder. Mr. Harvin was truly locked away. Dad surprised us one weekend by signing up the whole family for self-defense classes. Every Saturday morning, we practiced techniques in a mirrored studio with an instructor who specialized in personal safety. It was weird at first, but strangely healing. Mom turned out to be surprisingly good at elbow strikes, which kept us laughing during practice. The movement helped shake off some of the fear that had clung to our bodies for too long. When the one-year anniversary of Harvin's arrest approached, we all felt it. That strange mix of relief and memory. We made it through. I was back in school, on the debate team, even getting good grades again. My seizures were controlled. Our house finally felt safe. And then, we got a letter from the prison. Not from Harvin himself, but from the warden. Harvin had been moved to solitary confinement after trying to recruit yet another inmate to contact me. They'd found notebooks full of new plans for revenge. The warden promised they would be used to deny any future parole requests. It should have felt reassuring, but it didn't. It reminded me that Harvin's obsession hadn't faded, that even in a concrete cell, his mind was still circling me like prey. Marcus and Bird invited me to their graduation party. Standing in their backyard under string lights, surrounded by music and conversation, I felt almost normal. The hypervigilance had dulled to a quiet hum. I could breathe again. When someone cracked a joke about chemistry class, I didn't even flinch. As senior year approached, I made a decision. I wasn't going to keep hiding from what happened. I was going to use it. I started volunteering with a local victim advocacy group. The coordinator trained me in how to support others without overextending myself. Talking to people, really talking, about stalking and fear and survival gave me a sense of purpose. During one session, a girl shared that her ex had started showing up uninvited and leaving messages. Her story mirrored mine in disturbing ways. I shared the strategies we'd used, how we documented everything, secured our home, involved law enforcement. Watching her grow more confident, it reminded me just how far I'd come from that terrified student lying on a chemistry lab floor. Then, one last update came. The rehabilitation board had received a request from Harvin. He wanted to enter a program that might reduce his sentence. But first, he had to acknowledge his crimes and their impact. The prosecutor sent us a copy of Harvin's written statement with a warning. I read it once, and then burned it. It was 20 pages of delusion. He claimed I had hypnotized other students, that I had bribed the school board, that I had faked my diagnosis. The board rejected his request immediately. Zero accountability. No remorse. Just obsession in every line. That night, my parents and I sat on the couch watching a movie. Our new security system blinked quietly in the background. For the first time in a long time, it felt okay. Safe. Normal. I graduated, applied to colleges, and started rebuilding. Harvin had tried to destroy me, but I was still standing. Stronger. My epilepsy, the condition he tried to weaponize, was finally under control. I knew how to advocate for myself, medically and personally. I had survived something people don't always come back from. And now, I wasn't just surviving. I was living. Harvin wanted me afraid forever. But I chose something else. To live fully. Aware, but unafraid. My life was mine again, and I intend to make the most of it.